Hey guys, welcome to the session by Intellipaat. Today we will be comparing two famous and widely used web services which are REST and SOAP. Also, before moving on to the session, please subscribe for more upcoming content. Looking at the agenda of this session, first we will briefly introduce web services and talk about what web services are and their functions. We will talk about the famous web services REST and SOAP. We will then understand the difference between the two and speak about the use cases for both of the services. Now that you're aware of the agenda, let's begin with the introduction to web services. Why do we use web services? Firstly, what are web services? Web services allow various applications to talk to each other and share data and services among themselves. For example, Visual Basic or .NET applications can talk to Java web services and vice versa. Web services are widely used to make the application platform and technology independent. A complete web service is any service that is available over the internet or private networks. For example, a client invokes a web service by sending an XML message, then waits for a corresponding XML response. All this communication is in XML. Web services are not tied to any one particular operating system or programming language. Java can talk with Perl, Windows application can talk with Unix applications. Like I already mentioned, web services are not tied to any one particular operating system or programming language. That is, they are independent. Web services use XML at data representation and data transportation layers. Using XML eliminates any networking, operating system, or platform binding. Web services based applications are highly interoperable at their core level. A web service should also be discoverable via a simple find mechanism. That is, they are discoverable through a simple location method in the URI. This layer is responsible for centralizing services into a common registry and providing easy publish find functionality. Web services use a standardized XML messaging system. Web services are self-contained, modular, distributed, and dynamic applications that can be described, published, located, or invoked over the network to create products, processes, and supply chains. Web services are also self-describing via a common XML grammar. Web services are XML-based information exchange systems that can use the internet for direct application-to-application interaction. These systems can include programs, objects, messages, or documents. The basic web services platform is XML and HTTP, where XML stands for Extensible Markup Language and was designed to store and transport data. HTTP is a protocol that allows the fetching of resources such as HTML documents. It is the foundation of any data exchange on the web. Furthermore, we will talk about how these web services work. A key feature of web services is that applications can be written in various languages and are still able to communicate by exchanging data with one another. Web services enables communication among various applications by using open standards such as HTML, XML, WSDL, and SOAP. A client summons a web service by sending a request via XML and then the service responds with an XML response. To summarize, a web service takes the help of XML to tag the data, SOAP to transfer the message, WSDL to describe the availability of service. WSDL stands for Web Services Description Language. Moving on to our next topic, we will talk about what SOAP and REST services are. Firstly, we will look at SOAP. SOAP is a messaging protocol specification for exchanging structured information in the implementation of web services. SOAP is an acronym for Simple Object Access Protocol and is a standards based web services access protocol that has been around for a long time. SOAP is a protocol, or in simpler words, it is a definition of how web services talk to each other or talk to client applications that invoke them. SOAP was developed as an immediate language so that applications built on various programming languages could talk easily to each other and avoid the extreme development effort. Considering its long history, SOAP has a rigid set of messaging patterns. On the other hand, REST is an architectural style for providing standards between computer systems. REST is an acronym for Representational State Transfer and does not require processing and is naturally more flexible. RESTful Web Services is a lightweight, maintainable, and scalable service that is built on the REST architecture. RESTful Web Service exposes API from your application in a secure, uniform, and stateless manner to call the client. Systems that follow the REST paradigm are stateless, meaning the server does not need to know anything about what state the client is in or what state the server is in.
Okay guys, a quick info: if you're looking for an end-to-end training on any of the technologies you want to learn, Intellipaat is the right choice, and you can check out those details in the description box below. So now, without any further delays, let's continue with this session.
Now that we know what REST and SOAP web services are, we will compare and contrast. When compared, SOAP is a protocol and REST is an architectural style. A REST API can utilize the SOAP protocol. Talking about similarities, both the SOAP and REST rely on well-established rules that everyone has agreed to abide by in the interest of exchanging information. Both SOAP and REST connect to two applications via server-side data, that is, machine and human readable. Both typically use HTTP protocols and methods like get, post, delete, and update, but can also use other protocols such as SMTP. When we talk about the official standards, SOAP API has an official standard because it is a protocol. SOAP is a standardized protocol that sends messages using other protocols such as HTTP and SMTP. The SOAP specifications are official web standards maintained and developed by the World Wide Web Consortium. REST API has no official standard at all because it is an architectural style. As opposed to SOAP, REST is not a protocol but an architectural style. The REST architecture lays down a set of guidelines you need to follow if you want to protocol a RESTful web service. For example, stateless existence and the use of HTTP status codes. When we come to protocols, SOAP is based on HTTP and XML. SOAP relies heavily on XML and together with schemas defines a very strongly typed messaging framework. Every operation the service provides is explicitly defined, along with the XML structure of the request and response for that operation. Whereas REST uses multiple standards like HTTP, JSON, URL, and XML. In terms of bandwidth, SOAP requires more bandwidth and resources because the payload created in XML is large. SOAP needs to communicate information about objects and their states using XML infoset. Typically, these data models are serialized as textual XML. REST uses JSON, due to which it requires less bandwidth and resource when compared to SOAP. The payload created in JSON is not as large as compared to SOAP. When SOAP is compared to typical REST implementations, it consumes significantly more bandwidth. And SOAP has an additional header for every message, while RESTful services utilize an HTTP header. So, avoid the use of SOAP in those situations where bandwidth is very limited. SOAP uses web service interface to expose the business logic. In SOAP, we expose the weather service interface and operations inside. For the sample provided, the getWeather method is exposed to the outside world, which takes the city name as the input and returns weather details as output. In REST, instead of the service interface, URI is exposed to the outer world so that the URI to invoke the above method will be http:/appname/weather-service/getWeather. SOAP has built-in error handling features. So if there is any problem with the SOAP request sent, the SOAP response will contain error information. In the case of REST, there is no standard inbuilt error handling feature provided and developers have to handle them by passing custom response codes.
Okay guys, a quick info: if you're looking for an end-to-end training on any of the technologies you want to learn, Intellipaat is the right choice, and you can check out those details in the description box below. So now, without any further delays, let's continue this session.
SOAP API uses web services description language for describing the functionalities. The web services description language is an XML-based interface description language that is used for describing the functionality offered by a web service. REST API uses web application description language for describing the functionalities offered by a web service. Here, web application description language, or WADL, is a machine-readable XML description of HTTP-based web services. Since SOAP uses XML to exchange information, it's also convenient with JavaScript, but doesn't support greater implementation. REST APIs are more convenient with JavaScript and can be implemented easily as well. As REST used JSON for exchanging information, it comes with built-in support for JavaScript. This makes API consumption and passing more easier in REST API. In conclusion, when it comes to which services are better, one is that to the question of REST versus SOAP. The ultimate answer is it depends. Each protocol has a definite advantage and a disadvantage. REST allows a greater variety of data formats, whereas SOAP only allows XML. Coupled with JSON, REST is generally considered easier to work with. Still, SOAP remains the preferred protocol for certain use cases. For few instances, like if you need more robust security, SOAP support for WS security can come in handy. It offers some additional assurances for data privacy and integrity. Selecting SOAP versus REST comes down to the programming language you use, the environment you use it in, and the requirements. We have learned about what web services are and compared two famous and widely used web services. Now let's learn about the use cases of these services. Firstly, we will talk about SOAP use cases. SOAP is suitable for anything that required formal contacts. Two of the most common use cases for SOAP are asynchronous operations and stateful operations. Asynchronous operations. Asynchronous operation is extremely useful for environments in which a service such as a loan processor can take a long time to process a client request. They are very time specific. It is when various signals or preceding events trigger new events rather than an external timer. SOAP supports additional communication protocols as well. Stateful operations. Basically, stateful means that server stores information about the client and uses that information over a series of requests. So performing one request is dependent upon the state of some other request. Implementing this is possible with HTTP protocols. Stateful operations can generally be categorized as the operations that are performed repetitively, that are chain tasks. For example, in the financial industry, it requires that you may need to retain client data within the server for future use. SOAP supports stateful operations. Secondly, we will learn about REST use cases. REST can give the same as most of the results produced by SOAP. Few situations, REST is specifically geared towards being fast and many people developing public APIs. REST APIs work seamlessly with limited bandwidth at a low cost for simple operations. REST performs much faster and gives better results in situations that are mentioned. It has proved to be useful for lower income businesses at the moment or limited bandwidth. Developing public APIs. Due to the lesser complexity, REST API has grown in popularity. REST APIs are common and